Stanley Kubrick, to everybody's shock and sometimes dismay, was not a horrible, mean person. He was cruel, but he was fair. He said the reason he has to do so many takes is because so oftentimes actors don't know their lines. And when he says that, he doesn't mean that they don't, they haven't memorized them and show up and repeat their lines. That knowing their lines had to be something that was as unconscious as a Marine recruit who could take apart their rifle and put it back together with a blindfold on. That you had to really understand what it was you were saying to the point where there was no other logical thing for you to say. Even Lee Ermey, who played the drill instructor, had to work on memorizing lines that he had contributed to the script. That these were things that he said that were written down and put into the script, but then he had to memorize them as an actor would to be able to repeat them over and over and from different angles. That a real drill instructor doesn't do that. Which Lee Ermey was a real drill instructor, and so he had to go through the processes of being able to repeat those lines and repeat a performance multiple times with what they call continuity. That if he reaches up and scratches his head in a scene, and they change the camera angle, you have to reach up and scratch your head in the same fashion so that you can edit the movie together with continuity. We've all seen those mistakes in movies, right? Where somebody's holding a cup of coffee in one angle and you cut to another angle and he's not holding the coffee. He's taking a puff on a cigarette from this angle and there's no cigarette in his hand in the next scene,
So what would be the average number of takes you had on Full Metal Jacket with Kubrick, Matthew?
Well, I like to think of Arliss Howard. Arliss played cowboy in the film. He was in boot camp and in the Vietnam sequence. When we get ready to go into that place, the square where the sniper is that's picking us off one by one. So there was before there when 8-Ball gets up and goes into the square and gets shot. We were at that wall. Arliss said, I don't care if this is the greatest scene in the history of movie making. I'm going to tell everybody that I was at this wall for 1 month. So that sequence, which is probably, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 minutes of film, we were at the wall for a month.
Get out of here. But do you ever want to say, did you ever want to say to him, hey, or as you refer to him even here in 2020, Mr. Kubrick, come on, we got it. Did you ever want to say that at some point?
Never. And he said it early on to me. Early on, he invited my wife and I to his house many times for dinner. And,
yes.
And he said, isn't it funny how people say, how many takes do I take? Like, what difference does it make how many takes I do? He said, would you ever go to Pablo Picasso and say, hey, Pablo, I really love that painting. How many strokes? Or would you say to Beethoven, how many notes in that symphony, Ludwig? And, when you're in the process of creating something, maybe that's why we're talking about the movie 33 years after the fact, is that what it was, this elusive thing that he was looking for in order to be able to move on and say, good, cut, we got it, let's move on. That elusive thing, I don't know what it was. I can't tell you why we did that many takes, but I know that I've done, I guess, almost 100 projects now, and this is the only one I'm talking about 33 years after the fact.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.